and branches the people laid down for Jesus. What he's saying is that genuine worship, by the time the colt came in, they put their clothes on the donkey, then they put branches on the floor. It's like an act of worship, recognizing the king entering. Then another application in verse 12 to 14 is talking about genuine faith, producing fruit, not just but no fruit. So this is saying, as written here in this study, said it symbolized empty pretense. So it was relating it to the Israelites, that they were not worshiping God the way they should worship God. They were pretending they were not bearing fruit. So he said the lesson is to avoid showy religiosity that lacks real spiritual fruit. So in our church, religious activities that lack spiritual fruit, love, righteousness, and obedience, God does not see it. Anyone that lacks love, righteousness, and does not see it as being fruitful. Then, recall that same before then, he went to the temple. Jesus inspects his church for fruitfulness. A reputation of piety is not enough, as described. So let's go to the biggest drama there, purifying worship and priorities. We said the temple should be a house of prayer and not den of thieves. Church should be a place where all can connect with God, not a place centered on personal gain, greed, or commercialism. So we are being reminded that the temple, the church of God, should be a house of prayer. It shouldn't be a place of organization. So cleansing our lives as temples of the Holy Spirit. We know we are the temple of God. We should allow Jesus to cleanse our hearts of worldly distractions that hinder our devotion to him. So we are looking at applications now from what we've read. Respecting holy spaces. This against Allah. What this is saying is that we should respect our temple. We should respect holy spaces, place of worship. We shouldn't be allowing business as usual or financial motives to pollute the holiness of corporate worship. So the passage is short and direct. So it's admonishing us as believers to a life of active, humble service, genuine spiritual life, and focused, prayerful worship. Before I go into some of the questions I have here, I don't know whether we have comments or contribution. What we did, we read Mark chapter 11, verses 1 to 19. And we titled the study as The Beginning of the End. And we said it was a record of what happened between Palm Sunday through crucifixion of Jesus Christ and resurrection. So Passion Week, that's the suffering of Jesus Christ. And we're looking at, that's why the beginning of the end, that's the beginning of the end of the physical life of Jesus Christ. And we divided it into three: the triumphant entry, where he got the colt, he sent for it, rode on it, there was branches on the floor. That was all happened on Palm Sunday. He got there, it was late, he went to Bethany. When he came back, he was hungry the next day. He saw the fig tree that was green. There was no fruit there. He cursed the fig tree, and that was a reflection of the state of Israel then. Then he went back to the temple. He saw people buying and selling, and he chased them away. Supposed to be house of prayer, he turned to dens of. And we looked at some of the applications. We talked about the donkey's owner that released his donkey. Likewise, we don't own anything as Christians. God is the ultimate owner of all things. We are just stewards. And we talked about humble authority, true worship, talking about genuine praise when they were laying their cloak and branches on the floor for the colt that he was riding. We talk about producing fruit, not just leaves. The fig tree was having fresh leaves, but no fruit. And we said, as Christians, we should produce fruits in form of love, righteousness, and obedience. And we talk about purifying worship and priorities, making sure that our body is the temple of God, house of prayer. We should purify worship, and we should cleanse our lives. We should allow Jesus to cleanse our hearts of worldly distractions that hinder our devotion to him. Those are the applications. So I said, back to comments and contributions before we go into some of the questions that we have to see our understanding of the study or the test that we have today. Again, the beginning of the end, as captured in Mark chapter 11 from verses 1 to 19. So, comments, contribution, questions before I start asking my own question. Yes, sir.
Mine is a question. When we're going through the passage, you explained that most of what we are seeing is showing the lordship and authority of Jesus Christ, which you can see from the story of the colt, the donkey, the fig tree, and also the cleansing of the temple. And okay, this wasn't part of what we read, but you know when the disciples met Jesus and they were trying to get an interpretation of what the fig tree represented, because when they went back, they saw that the fig tree had been as Jesus said it would, that it will never produce fruit. And when they asked Jesus then gave them that example that he who has faith, if he says to the mountain to be removed and thrown into the sea, it will be so. So the question I want to ask is, it seems like Jesus Christ is saying that we as believers have a certain portion or share of the authority which he has basically exemplified. To what extent do we have that? Because you said something earlier that can we go to the temple and like chase out people? You made mention of that. So how do we relate that to our lives as believers in having, to what extent do we have that authority which Jesus has given to us in terms of exercising the faith? I don't know if you could explain that.
Okay. If I understand you well, you are asking how well can we be like Jesus, and maybe practicalize what Jesus did. Okay. I will try and voice out some of the thought process I have. Logically, Jesus is the Son of God. He has died for us. They said Jesus is the firstborn. And when we are saved, we are joint heirs with Christ. But we are also told that we are supposed to be discipled. We are supposed to be discipled. Basically, if you recall the other issues that happened, that they were not able to do certain things. And he told them this thing cannot be done by prayers alone, but prayer and fasting. So the discipleship is the growth process. So I would not say it's the fault of Jesus that we are not where we are supposed to be, but it's the reception that we, or the faith, the level of faith we are exhibiting, we are still learning. And that's why he said that if we have faith as mustard seed, we can move mountains. So it's the lack of faith that's hindering us. Because if you go to a temple now and they are doing some bad things, you might not be able to chase them out, because inside you, you will be able to identify some of the things that are limiting you, some of the things that you feel you want to correct in your own lives. So you are not yet there. So, but with faith, you can do little things and gradually you can get there. It's a journey, it's not a destination. So that's the response I will give. I don't know whether anybody has any response to his question. He's asking, why can't we do the similar thing that Jesus did in the temple, chasing people out? Anybody want to add to what I've said? Or, okay, sir.
Well, I think I want to start from the point of to what extent we can go so as far as our faith is able to carry us, to as far as the extent to which we want to dare things. Just like facilitator mentioned a moment ago, which you also talk about, going into the temple, saying some things, and you want to chase people out. Are you ready to dare it? If you are ready to dare it, you can go as far as that. Of course, you have to be ready to take some slaps, to take beatings. But the fact remains that with the faith, with the confidence that you have within you, you dared it, right? So that is the first thing. That's the first thing. You see, the second thing is this. I always like to say this. Yeah, we are disciples of Christ. But you see, the truth of it is that except whatever we are given the grace to do, we definitely will not be able to do some things. So on that note, I don't always like to get myself into the subject of a kind of a comparison between man and Jesus. I don't know if you're getting me. I don't always like to get myself into it, because we must not forget the truth that Jesus is not just man, but God in form of man. So we need to put that one there. We need to put that one there. The kind of the thinking you want to think before you put your faith to use. Jesus, I believe, did not do that kind of thinking, because he is with authority over everything. But because we are his disciples and he has also endowed us with grace, that's why he said at first that we can go for as far or as much as we are ready to dare the situation and also to exercise our faith. Either that faith and the daring at that particular point or concerning that particular matter will now be to your advantage or not. It's a different ball game. I hope I'm communicating. It's a different thing entirely. Of course, our conclusion will always be that if you dare it and they beat you, they are beating you to the glory of God. That is language. Yes, that is what we say. It's like what Apostle Paul said when he said, be using this to console one another. We use it to console one another, to encourage one another's more in faith. But that is left to God. Okay? So your faith, you can exercise it to as much as you want to dare the situation, as much as you want to put your faith into practice, and just leave the rest unto God to handle or settle.
I'm not part of the beginning of the story, but I don't know whether I'm going to talk out of context. Picking from the different things that we have said. So, as far as Jesus' action and what he did, that was like demonstrating some form of physical authority. The Bible says, as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are sons of God. What somebody does may not necessarily be my own template. So we need to be sensitive to the Spirit in actions that we take. And how do we get ourselves to be sensitive to the Spirit? He talked about by prayer and fasting. Prayer in the presence of God and fasting. Fasting not necessarily as a sacrifice, but fasting sort of, it sharpens your spiritual antenna. You understand? So if you spend a lot of time with fasting and prayer, your spiritual antenna is sharpened. And to a large extent, you know what to do per time. Because I was listening to someone that said, even Jesus Christ himself, he did not attend to each situation in the same way. When he wants to heal some people, sometimes he will say, get out. Sometimes he will rub mud on the ground and put on their eye. Sometimes he will say, he will lift your hand and say, walk. Sometimes he will tell you. So he did not have, and that is because God is God, and God doesn't want you to be able to use a template to determine what. So the fact that Jesus Christ went into the temple at that point in time and beat people up doesn't mean that is the right thing for us to do at every point in time. We need to walk by the Spirit, by developing ourselves, by constant interaction with the Spirit through fasting, prayer, Bible study. Those disciplines will build us up, sharpen our spiritual antenna to know what we need to do per time. Now, per authority, like they've said, he has given us all authority. He said, I've given you all authority to trample on snakes and scorpions and to overcome all the power of the enemy. So, to what extent is not a question. He has given us all authority. He is the head. He has overcome. He put to shame principalities and powers. He's the head. He's seated above. And we are his body. The head does not go the left and the body is going the right. Wherever the head is, that's where the body is. Whatever blood flows through the body, flows through the head, flows through the body. So the authority that Christ has as the head of the church, apart from the fact that he has already said he has given it to us, he has said we are his body. So if the head has won, definitely the body has won. So we have all authority. We have all authority. But it's just that we don't believe it, so we are afraid, and the devil makes us to feel like we don't have it. But indeed we have it. And there was something the Reverend said that hit me, which is what I always say all the time. Exercise. We need to exercise our faith. We need to exercise our authority. The more you exercise, the more your muscles get stronger. If you say you want to start getting fit today, you will not just go and say you want to go and lift 100 kg bench press, I mean, what do people call it? You will enjoy yourself. You start little by little. So we are meant to build up our faith through exercising, little by little. Yes, sometimes when you are close to the Spirit, it may give you an instruction that may require you stretching more than you are normally used to. That is walking by the Spirit. But I just want us to know that we have all authority. We have all authority. But we need to walk by the Spirit. Praise God.
Thank you. I just want to add to the teaching on the aspect of Jesus entering into the temple and chasing the people out. But my focus is not about Jesus chasing people out, but about the temple and the buying and selling that was going on. The first thing there is the temple was divided into two. We have the commoner's place, okay, which we normally call the outer part of the temple. That was where the buying and selling was actually going on. Okay? That was, so it is, for example, let's say this is our corridor here. So something like that. So that was where the buying and selling was going on. But the most important thing there is that that place was actually meant for, quote and unquote, the commoners. Okay? Quote and unquote, the commoners. The not affluent kind of, you know. So that place was meant for them, for worship. Because not everybody can actually come inside the main temple to worship. But people can stay there, even the proselytes, that is where they also stay to worship. Now, those that have muzzle, let me use the language of those that have muzzles, they protected their own place of worship, but allowed the commoners, permit me to use the language, the commoners' place to become marketplace. I think the first thing we need to know also there that I want to bring out is that there is no part in the temple of God that is more sacred than the other. Every part is important, regardless of who are the people that are staying here, who are the people that are sitting here, who are the people that are occupying this particular place. That's the first thing that I want to chip in. The second thing is the buying and the selling. And maybe the way to look at that is also to look at the church of God today and to say, in what ways are we doing things that are similar to that? Noting this, the fact that the buying and selling did not start for gain making. They started it in order to make preparation for worship easier. People are coming, they have to buy turtle dove, they have to buy pigeon, and they of course need to change money first. So that's to tell us that Burundi change has been for long. It is not now. So when they come into the temple, those that are coming from other places, they will change their money first to the money of the land so that they can use it to transact. So in order to make that easier for them, so that everything will be within, walking distance and that kind of a thing, you see what they eventually turn the house of God to. The church of God today, regardless of denominations, are there not things that in an attempt or with the mind of making worship much easier, much enjoyable, or what other thing that we can use? In order to do that, we have put so many things in and around us that we are not seeing in the way of this buying and selling, but that in actual sense, they belong to the same level, the same group. All because we want to make the worship much easier for people, much comfortable for people. And there are things that we have put here and there. We might not be making money out of them, but in a way or the other, they have also constituted a kind of issue in the worship and in the service and even to the people. May the Lord continue to help us.
Just like I read out earlier when we were talking about application, it talked about as temples of the Holy Spirit, we should allow Jesus to cleanse our hearts of worldly distractions. Because anything that is not contributing to the worship is a distraction. So Reverend was trying for us to look at what are those things around us that are not contributing to our devotion to Christ. I have a couple of questions here that I said I will. Why did Jesus choose to enter on a young donkey rather than a war horse? As a king, as a warrior, you enter a town with a horse. But he chose a colt. A colt, if you go and look at it, is a donkey, a young donkey that is less than a year old. And they said nobody rode on it before, so he was the first person. So why did he enter Jerusalem like that? And how does this event fulfill Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9? We read these things, so I'm asking the question now. So if you are good students, so you are now to answer me, since it's only one question that we got when our online participants, I don't know whether they have opportunity to contribute. So the question is, why did Jesus choose to enter on a young donkey rather than a war horse? And what did this signify regarding his kingdom? And we said, how does this event fulfill Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9? Mind you, Zechariah is in Old Testament. So how really